film which you are about to see shows one aspect of the discrimination which is practiced today against Irish nationalists in the 6 northeastern counties of Ireland. These counties were separated from the rest of Ireland by a British Act of Parliament and are held and governed as a part of Britain in spite of the desire of the great majority of the people of Ireland to have the Irish nation restored to its natural historical unity. The film illustrates how discrimination is used against Irish nationalists in their own country in the highly important field of allocation of public housing. The town of Fintona in County Tyrone has been selected to show how pro-British residents are inevitably favoured in the allocation of houses, even where they are already better housed than their nationalist neighbours. One would imagine that in public housing, towards the cost of which all the population contribute, allocation would be made on the basis of need, or if political beliefs had to be taken into account in proportion to the numbers of each political creed in the area. However, the nationalists, who number more than 1/3 of the population of the 6 counties, do not get anything like 1/3 of the new houses built. Even if they have large families, houses are denied them in favour of supporters of the ruling clique, married or single, with families or childless. The immediate reason for this discrimination usually is that the pro-British ruling class wish to create or to preserve a slender voting majority in a parliamentary constituency. Therefore, regardless of moral right, they give houses only to those who support them. That is the position in Fintona. Only by such a policy of discrimination can the 6-county Belfast government and its henchmen maintain their, we hope, temporary ascendancy over those of the population who wish to see Ireland united and free. Housing discrimination is but one aspect of this policy. There are many others. The situation at Fintona, as shown by the film you are about to see, and the similar conditions existing in other parts of the 6 counties, sharply emphasise the moral weakness of the regime in its constant striving to make the partition of Ireland permanent. This film has already had its effect. The unexpected publicity has forced the Belfast regime to take emergency measures to improve somewhat the conditions in Fintona. But nothing is being done about the similar conditions existing in other parts of the 6 counties. If sufficient publicity of this kind can be brought to bear, not only on housing conditions, but on the very basis for existence of the Belfast regime, its efforts to prevent the reunification of Ireland will ultimately prove unavailing.
This is Fintona, Conde Tyrone. Fintona, a small, rather old-fashioned town in County Tyrone, one of the 6 northeastern counties of Ireland which are held under British rule. It has its problems, like other communities, but its rulers have a strange way of dealing with them. This is a record in pictures of how they deal here in Fintona with one of the basic problems of any community, the housing of the needy. The problem itself is pretty bad. Of the 314 houses in this town, about a quarter are like this, old, overcrowded, insanitary. Most of these little houses hold big families. Here are Mrs. Quinn and 3 of her children outside their cottage in Back Lane. There are 6 in the family, all living here. Mr. Campbell of Mill Street and some of his children. 8 people live here. There's a family of 8 here too. This is Mrs. McGuigan, Castle Street, with 5 of her children. Mrs. Pearson, Water Lane, with 5 of her children, again a family of 8. Mrs. Mullen of Mill Street has 8 children, all living here. Big families and little houses are normal in these back streets of Fintona. These 2-room cottages in Brunswick Row have no running water and no sanitation. The gully trap in the foreground here is the only means of disposing of sanitary waste. These miserable dwellings, condemned by the health authorities, are the main problem of this old town. Many of them are not only insanitary, they're unsafe in other ways. In winter, this stream has flooded the Brunswick Row cottages to a depth of 2 feet. But many towns in most countries have or have had problems like this. The question to be asked is really, what progress is being made towards getting the people properly housed? In Fintona, a housing effort has been made, a very considerable one in proportion to the size of the town. The local authority, the Omagh Rural District Council, has built 48 new houses in the past few years and laid the foundations for 20 more. 18 of these houses, and fine, comfortable houses they are here at Craigavon Park. 24 more are at Mitchellburn Terrace, not quite so good as Craigavon Park maybe, but good modern houses. The remaining new houses, smaller ones, are here at Liskeay, where more are now being built. The contrast needs no emphasizing. It looks as if the authorities here were making a pretty good job of things, getting the poor families with all those children out of those horrible cottages and into those fine new council houses. But the poor families are still right where they were, though each of them applied to get a new council house. Then where did the people in these new council houses come from? Did they need new houses more than the residents of Brunswick Row? These council houses were given to people who are comfortably off with small families or none at all. For example, number 5 Craigavon Park is occupied only by Mr. Gillespie and his wife. Number 12 only by Mrs. Weir and her daughter. Mrs. Adams lives alone in number 9 and Mrs. Jones alone in number 10. Miss Mills lives alone in number 7. Mr. Gibson and his wife live alone at 24 Mitchellburn Terrace. Mr. Coulter and his wife at number 7. Mr. Holsworth and his sister at number 1. Most of these people already had quite comfortable homes when the council houses were allotted to them. Mr. Holsworth, for instance, sold this farm at Kilgort, near Fintona, before moving to his new house. This bungalow at Coney Warren, 10 miles from Fintona, is also a council house controlled by the Omagh Rural District Council. Mrs. Jones left it for 10 Craigavon Park, where she lives alone. Her near neighbour, Police Constable Howe, formerly occupied this attractive house at Dromore Road, Fintona. Against a background of such great need, how is it that council houses are built for people who either do not need new houses or can well afford to rent them in the ordinary way? The answer is a political one. 2/3 of the people of this little town are nationalists. That is to say, they are in favour of unity with the rest of Ireland and against being treated as part of Britain. 1/3 is unionist, which here, paradoxically, means favouring British rule and the partition of Ireland. But the town is controlled by that unionist minority and run solely in their interest. These large families may be more in need of housing than childless couples or spinsters, but they happen to be nationalists, and the Omagh Council, under unionist control, does not want to house nationalists. Only 1 in 4 of these houses went to nationalists, who are 2/3 of the population and probably 4/5 of those most in need of housing. Here at Craigavon Park, not one house went to a nationalist. In this electoral division, there's a small unionist majority, which must be kept at all costs. In order to do this, it's necessary to bring in people from miles outside the district and to allocate houses to single people. Craigavon Park is unionist, and unionist it must stay. That is the record of how social justice is dispensed in Fintona, County Tyrone. It is not, unfortunately, an exceptional case. Fintona is just one little town in an ancient historic nation, the nation of Ireland. But it, and hundreds of communities like it in 6 of the 32 counties of Ireland, are separated from the rest of Ireland and held under British rule. Fintona is on the 6 counties side of the border that now cuts Ireland in 2. Over the greater part of the 6 counties of Ireland now attached to Britain, there is a majority of the population which longs for unity with the rest of Ireland. The majority of the people over the whole area shaded on this map are Irish nationalists who are held by force under British rule. It's the deliberate policy of the rulers of the 6 counties to discriminate against these nationalists in voting privileges, in jobs, and in housing. These pictures were taken in Fintona, County Tyrone, not in order to rouse national or social hatreds, but in order to expose part of a system of discrimination imposed with the connivance of the British government. It is imposed in order to maintain partition against the wishes of the majority of the Irish people. It is a system not less cruel and wrong because it's unspectacular and unobtrusive. Only an informed public opinion can destroy the structure of injustice which here in Fintona and throughout the partition territory sustains the unnatural division of Ireland.